The massive Zephyrian command ship floated in the darkness of space, its metal hull gleaming under distant starlight. Inside the intelligence chamber, dozens of alien officers worked at glowing computer screens. The air buzzed with electronic sounds and quiet conversations in the Zephyrian language. Commander Vextel stood before the main display screen, his green reptilian skin reflecting the blue light from the hologram. His yellow eyes focused on the image showing human ships moving slowly through space near a distant planet system. The ships looked ordinary, nothing special about them. Commander called Intelligence Officer Crackter from across the room. His insect-like mouthparts clicked together as he spoke. "We have been watching these humans for 3 days now. They keep sending messages about problems with their supplies." Vextel walked over to Crackter's workstation. The screen showed lines of text in human language, all translated into Zephyrian writing. The messages talked about food shortages, broken equipment, and delays in getting new parts for their ships. "What do you think this means?" Vextel asked, his voice making a low, rumbling sound. Crackter's antennae twitched nervously. "Sir, it appears the humans are having serious problems. Their fleet seems weak and unprepared. They only have 200 ships, and half of them need repairs." Vextel studied the data more carefully. Human ships moved in simple patterns, like ships that were just trying to stay together rather than preparing for battle. Their formations were basic, the kind that new military students might use. "Interesting," Vextel muttered. "Connect me to the War Council immediately." Minutes later, the communication screen filled with the faces of the Empire's most important military leaders. Admiral Korthok appeared in the center, his battle-scarred shell making him look fierce and dangerous. His red eyes glowed with interest. As Vextel began his report, "Admiral, we have discovered a small human fleet in the Kepler 442 system, 200 vessels, apparently conducting routine patrol operations. Our intelligence suggests they are experiencing significant supply problems." Admiral Korthok's mouth opened, showing rows of sharp teeth. 200 ships. That is nothing. "We have destroyed larger pirate fleets before breakfast." The other council members laughed at his joke. Sir Vextel continued, "Their communications indicate they are struggling with basic logistics. Food, fuel, spare parts, everything seems to be running low." "Perfect," Korthok growled, his claws tapping against the table. "Deploy a standard suppression fleet. 1,500 ships should be more than enough to eliminate this minor problem. We can use this as training for our newer crews." The council members nodded in agreement. To them, humans were just another weak species that needed to be taught their place in the galaxy. The meeting ended with orders to prepare the fleet for immediate departure. Far away, in the human fleet near Kepler 442, Captain Lihun stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Determination. Unlike the Zephyrian vessels with their dark metal and sharp angles, the human ship had a clean, efficient design. The bridge was filled with soft blue light from the control panels. Lee was a young man with dark hair and calm brown eyes. He wore the standard blue uniform of the United Earth Systems Navy, with captain's bars on his shoulders. Orders on his personal tablet, a small smile crossed his face. "Navigation Officer Cho," he called to a woman sitting at the front of the bridge. "Continue our current patrol pattern. Make sure we look like we are just wandering around without much purpose." "Yes, sir," Cho replied, her fingers moving across her control panel. "Should I make our course changes look a bit sloppy?" "Good thinking," Lee nodded. "Communications Officer Kim, I want you to send another message about our supply problems. Make it sound like we are really worried about running out of food." Lieutenant Parkman looked up from her sensor station. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up a large fleet heading our way. 1,500 ships, moving in standard Imperial attack formation." Lee's smile grew wider. "Excellent. Signal the rest of our fleet. Tell them that Operation Underestimate is working perfectly." The other officers on the bridge exchanged knowing looks. They had trained for months for this mission, and everything was going according to plan. What the Zephyrians did not know was that this was not a real patrol fleet at all. "Sir," Parkman said quietly, "should we inform Earth Command that the Empire has taken the bait?" "Not yet," Lee replied. Let them get closer first. I want them to be completely confident that they are dealing with a weak, unprepared human force. As the Zephyrian fleet approached through space, neither side knew that this encounter would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Empire believed they were about to crush a small, struggling human patrol. Humans knew they were about to give the Empire a lesson they would never forget. In the vast darkness of space, two fleets moved toward each other, each carrying the hopes and plans of their respective civilizations. The space around, Kepler 442 suddenly filled with bright flashes of light as 1,500 Zephyrian warships appeared from hyperspace. Their dark metal hulls gleamed in the starlight as they formed into attack positions. Fleet Commander Zixstar sat in his command chair watching the tactical display with confident eyes. "There they are," he said to his officers, pointing at the screen showing the human ships. 200 vessels, just as intelligence reported. "This will be over quickly." Star was an experienced commander who had won many battles for the Empire. His blue-scaled skin bore scars from previous fights, and his officers respected his tactical skills. He expected this battle to last no more than 30 minutes. "All ships prepare for attack formation Thatanine," he ordered into his communicator. "Target the human vessels and prepare to fire on my command." The Zephyrian fleet moved into their standard battle formation, with the largest ships in the center and smaller vessels on the sides. This formation had worked successfully in hundreds of battles against other alien species. There was no reason to think it would fail against humans. "Sir, the human ships are moving," reported Tactical Officer Nex Valoom, his voice showing confusion. "They are not running away as expected." Zixstar looked at the display screen and felt his first moment of doubt. Instead of scattering in panic, the human ships were moving into their own formation. But it was unlike anything he had seen before. The human vessels arranged themselves in a three-dimensional pattern that seemed to flow like water. They moved up, down, and sideways through space in ways that made no sense, according to Zephyrian military training. Each ship knew exactly where to go without any apparent communication between them. "Begin attack," Zixstar commanded, pushing aside his concerns. "Fire all weapons." The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with thousands of energy beams and missile weapons. The space between the two fleets lit up with explosions and laser fire. Zixstar expected to see human ships exploding within seconds. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships seemed to know exactly where every Zephyrian weapon would strike. They moved out of the way with perfect timing, as if they could see into the future. Not a single human vessel was hit in the first attack. "What is happening?" Zixstar demanded, his voice rising with alarm. "How are they avoiding our weapons?" Before anyone could answer, the human ships began to return fire. Their energy weapons were different from anything in the Imperial databases. The beams seemed to cut through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper. Captain Lihun stood calmly on his bridge, watching the battle unfold around him. His ship shook slightly as it fired its weapons, but his expression remained peaceful. The bridge crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. "Weapons Officer Kim, target their command vessels," Lee said in a normal voice, as if he was ordering lunch instead of fighting a massive space battle. "Navigation Officer Cho, execute maneuver pattern Delta 7. Kim's fingers danced across her control panel. Targeting systems locked onto enemy flagships. "Firing now." The human fleet responded to Lee's orders instantly. Moved as one, changing direction and speed with perfect coordination. They flowed around the Zephyrian formation like a school of fish, striking at weak points and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Lieutenant Parkman watched her sensor display with professional interest. "Sir, the enemy fleet is beginning to break formation. Our command structure appears to be failing." Lee nodded. "Continue engagement protocols. Make sure some of our vessels appear to take damage. We want survivors to report back to Imperial Command." As he spoke, several human ships began to show signs of damage. Smoke appeared from their hulls, and their movements became slightly less coordinated. But anyone watching closely would notice that the damage was carefully controlled, designed to look worse than it actually was. The battle continued for hours instead of minutes. The Zephyrian fleet, which had started with overwhelming numbers, found itself being slowly destroyed by an enemy that seemed to predict every move. Their weapons could not hit the human ships, while human weapons found their targets with deadly accuracy. Zixstar watched his fleet being torn apart with growing horror. Ships that had served the Empire for decades were exploding one by one. His tactical officers shouted reports of failures and losses, but nothing they tried seemed to work. "How are they reading our tactical projections?" he demanded as his flagship shuddered under human weapons fire. "Our movements are planned by our best computers, but they seem to know what we will do before we do it." His science officer, a young Zephyrian named Kilthos, looked up from his instruments with fear in his eyes. "Sir, their energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. The weapons appear familiar, but impossibly advanced." As more Imperial ships exploded around them, Zixstar realized this was not the easy victory he had expected. These humans were not weak scouts struggling with supply problems. There was something else entirely. His flagship's hull began to crack under human fire. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the bridge as systems failed one by one.
Zixstar
Knew he had only moments left. "Command, this is Fleet Commander Zixstar." He spoke into his communicator one last time. "The humans... They are not scouts. This is military precision beyond our comprehension. They are systematically dismantling our formations like they know our tactics better than we do." The transmission ended in static as the Imperial flagship exploded in brilliant silence. The Imperial Palace sat on the capital world of Zephyria Prime, its crystal towers reaching toward the purple sky. Deep inside the massive structure, Emperor Vorthek's throne room had become a place of terrible silence. The Emperor himself sat on his golden throne, his green scales darker than usual with anger. Giant display screens covered the walls, showing the battle recordings from Kepler 442 over and over again. Vorthok watched his 1,500 warships being destroyed by only 200 human vessels. Each time he saw it, his rage grew stronger. "Play it again," he commanded, his voice a low growl that echoed through the chamber. The recording started once more. Vorthak's officers stood perfectly still, afraid to move or speak. They had seen their emperor angry before, but never like this. His yellow eyes glowed with fury as he watched the impossible defeat. 1,500 vessels, he hissed, his claws digging into the arms of his throne. 1,500 of our finest warships, destroyed by 200 human scouts. How is this possible? Admiral Korthok stood near the throne, his battle-scarred shell making him look older than his years. He had somehow survived the political purge that followed the defeat, probably because he was one of the few experienced commanders left. "My Emperor Korthak," said carefully, bowing his head low, "I take full responsibility for this failure. I underestimated the human capability. Underestimated." Vorthok's voice rose to a roar that shook the crystal walls. "You told me they were weak. You said they had supply problems." "That was what our intelligence reported," Korthok replied, sweat dripping from his forehead. "The humans sent messages about food shortages and equipment failures. We had no reason to doubt silence." Vorthok stood up from his throne, his massive form towering over everyone in the room. "I do not want excuses. I want solutions." "What do you propose to do about this humiliation?" Korthok straightened his shoulders. "My Emperor, I request permission to deploy the Third Armada. 5,000 vessels should be sufficient to eliminate this human threat once and for all." The Emperor's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Sufficient," he said. 1,500 would be sufficient. You promised me an easy victory." "This time will be different," Korthok insisted. "The Third Armada includes our newest battleships and our most experienced crews. 5,000 ships against 200 is impossible odds, even for humans." Vorthok walked down the steps from his throne, his footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. He stopped directly in front of Korthok, close enough that the Admiral could smell his breath. "Deploy the Third Armada immediately," he commanded. "I want these humans erased from existence. If you fail me again, Admiral, you will join Fleet Commander Zixstar in death." Within hours, the Imperial propaganda machine began broadcasting across the galaxy. News reports appeared on every world under Empire control, announcing the deployment of the Third Armada. Citizens of the Empire, the announcer declared, the human infestation will be cauterized from the universe. The Third Armada represents our true military might. No force in the galaxy can stand against 5,000 Imperial warships. The broadcasts showed images of massive battleships leaving their bases, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. The Third Armada was indeed impressive. It's containing some of the most powerful vessels ever built by the Empire. However, the Empire did not know about the hidden network of human intelligence agents spread throughout their space. These agents looked like ordinary citizens of various alien species, but they were actually working for Earth Command. On Luna Station, orbiting Earth's moon, Admiral Song Ji-ho sat in his command center reading the intercepted transmissions. He was a quiet man with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. His office was simple and clean, with only a few personal items on his desk. "Sir," his aide reported, "we have confirmation that the Empire is deploying their Third Armada. 5,000 ships, including their newest battleships." Song nodded without surprise. "Signal Captain Lee Haeun. Tell him the Empire is escalating exactly as we predicted. Authorize him to proceed to Phase 2 of the operation." The message traveled through space at faster than light speed, reaching Captain Lee's ship in the Kepler 442 system within minutes. Lee read the orders on his personal tablet while standing on his bridge. "Communications Officer Kim," he called out, "relay to all vessels. The Empire is sending their Third Armada, 5,000 ships this time." Crew exchanged glances. 5,000 ships was a massive force, enough to destroy entire star systems. Lieutenant Parkman looked up from her console with concern. "Sir, should we request additional support from Earth Command? 5,000 ships is a significant escalation." Lee's smile was cold and confident. "Negative. Signal Fleet Command that. Reconnaissance Fleet 7 will handle the engagement. We're still gathering intelligence on Imperial capabilities." But Sir Park pressed. "Our orders were to observe and report. Surely facing 5,000 ships goes beyond reconnaissance." Turned to look at her, his expression calm but determined. "Lieutenant, our mission parameters include testing Imperial response to various threat levels. This is exactly what we were sent here to do." The other officers on the bridge nodded in understanding. They trained for this mission for months, and they trusted their captain's judgment completely. "Besides," Lee added with a slight smile, "it will be interesting to see how their newer ships perform compared to the ones we just destroyed." As the Third Armada began its journey toward Kepler 442, neither side knew that this engagement would reveal truths about human military capability that would shake the foundations of the galactic order. The space around Kepler 442 became dark. As 5,000 Imperial warships arrived from hyperspace, the massive fleet was so large that it blocked out the light from the nearby star, creating shadows across the entire system. At the center of this armada sat the flagship Imperial Domination, the largest warship ever built by the Empire. Admiral Korthok stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the human fleet through the main viewing window. His scarred face showed grim determination as he prepared for what he believed would be the final battle against the humans. "There they are," he said to his bridge crew, pointing at the human ships. 200 vessels, just as before. This time, they will not escape. The Third Armada was truly impressive. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small planet, and the flagship itself could turn entire worlds into glass with its main weapon. Korthok had personally selected the best crews in the Empire for this mission, so reported his tactical officer. "Something is strange about the human ships. According to our records, many of them were damaged or destroyed in the previous battle, but they all appear to be in perfect condition." Korthok frowned as he studied the sensor readings. The human ships looked exactly the same as before, with no signs of damage or wear. Their hulls gleamed like new, and their energy signatures were stronger than ever. "Possible," he muttered. "Our intelligence confirmed that we caused significant damage to their fleet. How could they repair everything so quickly?" "Perhaps they have advanced manufacturing capabilities," suggested his science officer. "Or maybe they brought replacement ships from their homeworlds." "No matter," Korthok declared.
5,000
ships against 200. The outcome is certain this time. The Admiral gave the order to attack, and the Third Armada opened fire with devastating force. Thousands of energy beams and missiles filled the space between the two fleets. The combined firepower was enough to destroy entire star systems. But once again, the humans did something impossible. They moved through the weapon fire like dancers, avoiding every shot with perfect timing. Their ships flowed around the Imperial formation in patterns that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "How are they doing this?" Korthok demanded as he watched. His weapons missed their targets over and over again. "Our targeting computers are the most advanced in the galaxy." The human ships began to return fire, and their weapons seemed even more powerful than before. Each shot found its target with deadly accuracy, cutting through Imperial shields and armor like they were made of paper. Captain Li Huyan stood calmly on his bridge, watching the battle unfold with professional interest. His ship moved smoothly through the weapon fire, never taking a single hit. The bridge crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. Weapons Officer Kim Lee said in a normal voice, "Target their command vessels. Focus on the flagship." "Yes, sir," Kim replied, her fingers moving across her control panel. Weapons locked and firing. The human fleet responded to Lee's orders with perfect coordination. They moved as one unit, striking at weak points in the Imperial formation and disappearing before the enemy could respond. "Lieutenant." Park Min studied her sensor readings with growing amazement. "Sir, the enemy fleet is larger than anything we have ever faced, but their tactics remain exactly the same as before." "Predictable," Lee replied. "Signal the fleet to begin advanced maneuvers. Let us see how they handle something they have never seen before." The human ships suddenly changed their attack pattern, moving in ways that seemed to bend space itself. They appeared in multiple places at once, struck from impossible angles, and vanished before the Imperial sensors could track them. Hours passed, and the battle raged on. The Imperial fleet, which had started with overwhelming numbers, found itself being slowly destroyed by an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment. Admiral Korthok watched his ships exploding one by one with growing horror. Nothing his fleet did seemed to work against the humans. Their weapons could not hit the human ships, while human weapons found their targets every time. "This is impossible," he said to his officers. 5,000 ships should be able to defeat any enemy in the galaxy." Then something happened that changed everything. Korthok's communication officer intercepted a human transmission, and what he heard made his blood freeze with fear. "Luna Station. This is Captain Lee Haeon, of Reconnaissance Fleet 7, the voice said calmly. "We are engaging the Empire's Third Armada. Current tactical assessment shows their primary fleet doctrine remains unchanged from previous encounters. Estimated completion time, 6 hours. Korthok listened in stunned silence as the transmission continued. "Please advise Fleet Command that we will need ammunition resupply before the main engagement begins. Also, confirm our orders remain to avoid revealing actual human capabilities until the primary battle fleet arrives." A new voice responded from far away. "Confirmed, Captain. Continue intelligence gathering. At a primary battle fleet is 3 days out. Maintain operational security regarding our true force projection." The truth hit Korthok like a physical blow. These were not the main human fleet. These were scouts, reconnaissance vessels. The real human fleet had not even arrived yet. As his flagship began to break apart under human fire, Korthok managed to send one final transmission to Emperor Vorthok. Vorthok's voice was filled with terror as he spoke the words that would haunt the Empire forever. "The scouts ... scouts ... The transmission ended in static as the Imperial flagship exploded in brilliant silence, taking Admiral Korthok and his crew with it. The Imperial Palace on Zephyria Prime had become a place of fear and confusion. Emperor Vorthok sat in his emergency meeting room, surrounded by leaders from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had been called together after Admiral Korthok's final transmission, and nobody knew what to expect. "Show them the reports," Vorthok commanded, his voice heavy with defeat. The room's main screen filled with intelligence data from across the galaxy. The information was shocking and terrifying. Hidden human shipyards were operating in star systems that the Empire had never even discovered. Entire planets had been converted into massive weapon factories. Fleet movements showed numbers that made the Empire's forces look tiny. Council member Theorix, purple alien with writhing tentacles, spoke first. "How did we miss this?" she demanded, her voice shaking with fear. "Our intelligence networks cover the entire galaxy. We have spies on every world." Because Vorthok replied grimly, "The humans allowed us to see only what they wanted us to see." The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the room. The humans had been playing a game far more complex than anyone had imagined. They had deliberately appeared weak and unprepared, while secretly building the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. "Sir," reported the Empire's chief intelligence officer, "we are receiving new sensor data. Long-range detection systems are picking up something approaching our space." The room fell silent as the data appeared on the screen. The numbers were impossible to believe. The approaching fleet contained 150,000 vessels, each one larger and more advanced than anything in the Empire's arsenal. "This cannot be real," whispered Councilmember Crix, his insect-like eyes wide with terror. "No species in the galaxy has ever built such a fleet." But the sensors did not lie. The human primary battle fleet was so massive that it created gravitational anomalies as it moved through space. Entire star systems were affected by the fleet's passage. The ships moved in perfect formation. Like a single living organism, Emperor Vorthok stared at the display in stunned silence. His mighty empire, which had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, suddenly looked pathetically small compared to this human force. Then the communication system activated, and Captain Li Han's voice filled the room. His image appeared on the screen, showing the same calm, professional demeanor he had displayed throughout the battles. "This is Captain Li Han of the United Earth Systems Navy. Reconnaissance Fleet 7, he began, his voice carrying across all frequencies in the galaxy. "What you have encountered over the past months represents 0.1% of our expeditionary force." The council members looked at each other in horror. 200 scout ships represented only 0.1% of human military power. What did that mean for the total size of their forces? "Our mission was to assess Imperial military capabilities through direct engagement," Li continued. "You have shown us your tactics, your weapons, and your strategic thinking. We thank you for this valuable information." Emperor Vorthok felt his heart sink as he realized the full scope of humanity's deception. The battles at Kepler 442 had not been desperate fights for survival. They had been tests, designed to learn everything about Imperial military capabilities. "Primary battle fleet has now arrived," Li announced. "You have 12 hours to surrender unconditionally, or we will demonstrate why humanity earned the right to join the galactic community through strength, not diplomacy." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in complete silence. Through the palace windows, they could see the human fleet approaching. The ships filled the void between stars, their massive forms blocking out entire constellations. "Emperor." Vorthok looked around the room at the faces of his advisors and allies. He saw fear, defeat, and acceptance. The empire that had conquered thousands of worlds was about to surrender to a species they had considered weak and primitive. "What are your orders, my emperor?" asked his military commander, General Thok. Vorthok closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "Send a message to all Imperial forces. We surrender unconditionally. All ships are to power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded by human forces." The surrender came exactly 11 hours and 59 minutes after Li's ultimatum. Across the galaxy, Imperial warships shut down their weapons and waited for human boarding parties. The war was over before it had truly begun. Captain Li Han stood on his bridge, watching the Imperial surrender with satisfaction. His small fleet had accomplished its mission perfectly. The Empire now understood that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. Sir Lieutenant Parkman reported, "We are receiving a private communication from Admiral Song at Luna Station." Li activated his personal communicator, and Admiral Song's familiar voice filled his ears. "Excellent work, Captain," Song said with approval. "The Seoul Defense Force is pleased with your intelligence gathering. The information you collected will be valuable for future operations." "Thank you, sir," Li replied. The mission proceeded, exactly as planned. "Oh, and Captain," Song added with a slight chuckle, Do not mention to the Empire that the primary battle fleet is just our local defense force. The actual human armada remains in the Sol system, waiting for threats that might actually require their attention. Lee smiled as he understood the full implications. What the Empire had just surrendered to was not even humanity's main military force, it was just the fleet that protected human space from minor threats. As the human ships took control of Imperial territory, the galaxy entered a new age. The empire that had ruled through fear and violence was gone, replaced by a human civilization that had demonstrated the true meaning of overwhelming force. The age of human dominance in the galaxy had begun.